Good morning. How are you guys doing this morning? I'm doing pretty well. A few of you also are doing pretty well. Most of you just said nothing. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I love the Christmas season. Do you guys love the Christmas season? I love Christmas. I love Christmas music. I know not everyone does, but raise your hand if you do love Christmas music. I love Christmas music. And I realized yesterday I'm part of the reason I love Christmas so much, okay, is because it starts off pretty good. Because yesterday was my birthday. It's true. And so Christmas really starts off with a bang for me. It's pretty incredible. We went to Chicago. We went to Legoland. I took my daughter to Legoland. My friends were making fun of me because they're like, was it really for your daughter? I mean, really? And it's 60-40, 60 me, 40 her. She had a great time, but I had an amazing time. Legoland rules. My name's Nathaniel. For those of you who haven't met me, I go by Nat. You'll hear people call me Nat. I'm the youth ministry director here at River Oaks. And this is my second time preaching here on Sunday morning. And I promise I'll stop keeping count after today. And I introduce myself because you might not recognize me because of my new disguise. Anyways, it's my second time preaching, and I'm just saying that because I have an advantage. And that advantage is that you guys don't exactly know what to expect from me. I'm still kind of a wild card, still kind of a maverick. We don't know where we're going. And so the first place I want to go with you guys is actually my first marital fight. Yeah, it's true. My first marital fight, a couple years ago, 4 years ago. Lily's not here, so I can kind of be a smudge about the date. But it was 2 days after our wedding. We hadn't gone on our honeymoon yet. 48 hours into our marriage, I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to be the best husband ever. And I know how to do it by offering her breakfast. Hey, Lil, what would you like for breakfast this morning? Oh, you're going to make breakfast? Absolutely. I love you so much. You're so beautiful this morning, by the way. What would you like? I'll make anything. Just don't go too crazy. We only have so many ingredients. We were living at Bethel at the time in a little tiny dorm because I was an RD there. She says, you know what I'd like? I'd like poached eggs. And my first thought was that I had to do something illegal to acquire some eggs. And then I realized that's not what she was asking. She was asking for specific, chicken eggs, normal chicken eggs, but a specific way. Lil, how do you make poached eggs? Oh, just look it up. It's okay. Okay, you sure? Because it sounds like you know, but I don't. Yeah, it's fine. Just look it up. All right, I'll look it up. I go onto YouTube University. It's the best thing humanity's ever created, and also the worst thing. It's both. But I start scrolling. I find a chef I really like. And this chef starts teaching me how to make poached eggs, okay? Like 3 different kinds of oil, some vegetables. I mean, it was amazing. It was like this huge thing. So I start pulling out pots and pans. We only had 1 kind of oil, but I wanted 3 because I was like, I'm going to go to the grocery store and make these perfect. This is going to be the greatest breakfast Lily has ever had in her life, and she's not going to regret for 1 minute marrying me, okay? And she looks over and she's from the cottage, what are you doing? And I've got, 7 pots and pans out. I got all sorts of spatulas. What are you doing? I'm making poached eggs, babe, just like you said. Like, that's not, why do you have so much stuff? That's how I make poached eggs. This is how this professional chef is teaching me how to make poached eggs. You're telling me that you know better than this professional chef? So it's not that I know better, it's that it's like unnecessary. So she gets up and, we get into a tussle. It was a fight, okay? It was a fight. But in the end, she ended up making the poached eggs. And they were good. She nailed them, okay? She nailed them. It was good. And the thing is, looking back now, it's funny and it's light because the eggs were great. I mean, she made breakfast faster than I would have. She made it better than I would have. And we had fewer dishes to do when she was done than there would have been if I had made them. And it was great. I mean, in the moment, I was angry. I was a little embarrassed that I couldn't make her breakfast. And yet it was worth it in the end. It was worth it in the end. I gave up a little something now to get something better in the end. And we're still together to this day, so that's a good thing. I also think about the street that's being constructed. I don't know how many times I've told you, I come in from like the east side entrance. I can't tell you how many times I've turned right and then had to go to the little day camp gardens and then turn all the way around and then go the long way. Because I always forget that it's there. There's giant yellow construction things, and I forget and I go and I think, frustration. I turn around and I have to make my way. And it's actually a good thing, right? We're withholding right now because later there's going to be a better road. I don't know if you know this about roundabouts, but roundabouts statistically, they make traffic flow faster. There are fewer accidents, and the accidents that happen are actually less dangerous. on average at a roundabout. So in the end, it's actually going to be a good thing. And then I have one more story because I love telling stories. My father-in-law is I am not a handy person, okay? My father-in-law is an extremely handy person. And he comes over, and we just got a house in May. It's a nice house. It's gotten better, okay? He comes over, and this happens a lot. Hey, Chuck, can you do this or that? And he'll be like, yeah, sure. He'll start looking at, this was done completely wrong. I have to tear this down and build it back up. He literally did that with one of our entire walls, okay? He looked in there, this was done the worst possible. It's almost like you did it, Nat. And so he has to tear the whole thing down and then build it back up. And something we don't realize sometimes is that God's actually doing this with all of human history. He's actually, he gave us something and we have kind of messed it up, and he's actually tearing things down in order to make it perfect in the end. We're going through some pain, but in the end, it's going to be perfect. And a couple months ago, we started, my notes are all wrong. We started in a series called Blessed and Broken. We started in the book of Genesis, chapter 1. We went through chapter 11, where we ended with the story of Babel. And in the beginning, God created, right, the heavens and the earth, and Adam and Eve came, and he gave them something to do. He said, you got to work, you got to have dominion over the earth, be fruitful and multiply. And we know what Adam and Eve did, right? They messed up. They decided to do their own thing. They did their own thing. They did it their way, and that kind of led to the flood. The flood. God resets humanity for the first time through the destruction of humanity. And then humans start they kind of get their feet under them, they start going again, and then it's the Tower of Babel. And I think we all know the story of the Tower of Babel. It's in Genesis 11:4. And here's what it says. It says, then they said, come, this is the people who are building the tower, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. So God tells Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply, spread out, have dominion, and we're doing the opposite. Did you notice? Let's build a city with a tower. If you think about a tower, it's space upwards so you can be closer. It's not space outward, it's space upwards so you can be closer together. So that what? We can make a name for Jesus so we can glorify his name? No. So we can make a name for us. Let's glorify ourselves in this situation, because when we work together, we can do awesome stuff. We can make progress. We can make the iPhone. We can make the Willis Tower. I saw it from a distance yesterday. It's such an ugly tower, but it's cool. It's so tall. We can make the Willis Tower, right? We can make we can create the United States of America. We can create the Roman Empire. It's unbelievable what humans can do when we're together. But here's the thing. It's kind of interesting. When we build things for ourselves, it always comes out of violence. It always comes out of exploitation. We always take from someone else to give to ourselves. Think about any empire in history. Usually when we make something, it's great to live in the United States today. It's wonderful. I love it. It would have been great to, it's awesome. You know what it wasn't great for? The Native Americans. The Roman Empire was amazing if you were a Roman, but if you weren't a Roman, it's not so good. It's not so good if you're not a Roman, because every human empire that's ever been built has been built for humans. It's been built for a subsection of humans, for their comfort, for their glorification, and it's at the cost of other people. It's at the cost of others. And it's a really bad foundation. I think it's a horrible foundation. That's a really, really bad. And so God does something. He does something really special. He begins the reversal of thousands of years of sin and violence. God begins the reversal of that by sending his son Jesus. Jesus comes, he shows up, and he starts a new kingdom. And this kingdom is different. It doesn't actually even make sense, because he says that blessed are the meek, and that peacemakers will be called sons of God. That's the beginning of the end, in some sense, because he starts to reverse human history one person at a time by changing our hearts. He changes us from the inside out to not be people who look for our convenience and look for our own desires and look for our own comfort, but instead look to others who are meek who are kind, who forgive. He's reversing this foundation, and he's put us here as his representatives. He comes to earth, he hangs out for 30-something years, then he dies, forgives of our sins. That's step one. He forgives us. Then he comes back to life, and he heads out. He heads out, and he says that it's on us right now. But he doesn't just leave us hanging. He gives us his very Spirit to live in us. And so we're here as his representatives, continuing the kingdom that he started. We're his representatives, and we have his help every day. And so that's the beginning of the reversal of everything. It's kind of interesting how we see at the beginning, we mess everything up. God starts taking everything little by little and starts changing it into perfection. And that's actually what we're talking about this morning. We're waiting for his return. We're talking about this morning. We're going to be in Revelation chapter 21 and Revelation chapter 7. I say 21 first because we'll be going there first. Does anyone have a physical Bible? 3 of you? Nice. Everyone first service had one, so it's a good thing I have this up here. Everyone first service had one. I have one, and it's at home, and I use it pretty much every day, but I never take it anywhere because it's inconvenient. I don't know. Is that wrong to say about the Bible? We're starting in Revelation 21, and we're to keep a finger in Revelation 7. The 2 of you who have a physical Bible. Thanks for laughing at me. It makes me feel good. But we're starting at Revelation, but before we actually get there, I'm going to share 2 illustrations that Jesus talks about heaven, because we're talking about heaven today. I love talking about heaven. It's actually a privilege for me to talk about heaven. It's something that's so exciting. Cool. Love heaven. But Jesus gives 2 illustrations. He actually gives 3, but we'll talk about 2 right now, and we'll talk about a third one later. He says that the kingdom of heaven is kind of like this. It's kind of like this guy who is wandering around, goes into a field. In that field, he finds a hidden treasure. He checks it out, and it's so good. It's so valuable. He doesn't even have to think about it. He goes home, sells everything he has, gives everything away just to buy the field that treasure is in. Right? The kingdom of heaven is like this merchant. It's a person who does business, and they're buying, selling, trading. They know how to value things. In other words, there are sometimes I almost went off on a rant. Sorry. He knows how to look at things. They know how to look at things, how to measure their worth. And he sees a pearl. Pearls aren't very big. I don't think I've ever seen a real pearl not behind glass in my life because pearls are expensive. But he sees one, and it's so valuable. It's so beautiful that he basically gives up his business. He sells everything he has just to own this perfect pearl. And Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is kind of like that. It's kind of the kingdom of heaven is just better. I don't know what you think about heaven. I don't know if you think it's going to be boring or if it's going to be just like worship songs all the time, or I don't know if you think if we're going to be on in clouds playing the harp. I don't even know how to play the harp, so I probably wouldn't be there. But it's better than that. And if you think heaven is awesome, like if you're like, oh, heaven's the best thing I can imagine, which is how I feel about it, you're still wrong, because heaven is better than that. Heaven is going to be so unimaginably good. It's perfect. We can't even imagine perfection because we haven't really ever glimpsed perfection in a perfect way. Sometimes we say things are perfect. Last weekend I was at a wedding. My cousin got married. And, you have the ceremony, and then afterwards they wait outside and you say hi to them. So, hey, I'm here. And you see the bride, and what do you say to the bride when you see her the first time? You're perfect. You're beautiful, right? That was a point for later, but it's just thinking about the wedding. Heaven is just better. Heaven is better than we can imagine. So we're going to Revelation 21, verses 1 through 6. We're going to read through the whole thing, and then I'll come back. I'll have to share that story again when it is relevant. Revelation 21, 1 through 4. Here we go. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. There was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Let's go back to verse 1. The old is gone, right? The old is gone and the new is coming. God undoes all this damage that we've done over the years. We've built something, but it's tainted. It's tainted, it's messed up, and a lot of times it's for our own glory. And God's rebuilding this, the new heaven and new earth. And it's interesting because I started thinking about this. I think, what does that mean, new heaven and new earth? First heaven and the first earth. It's easy to imagine the first earth passes away. That's where we are now. But what's the first heaven? When Jesus comes back, he promises us that one day he's going to come back and we're going to be resurrected. This is the opposite of the flood story. He resets humanity the first time by destroying us. And this next time, Jesus comes back and he's resetting humanity by reviving us. He's bringing us back to life. But we're not there yet. We all have loved ones who have died. They're gone right now, but they're in heaven. Most of them, hopefully. They're in heaven. And that's the old heaven. Soon, when Jesus comes back, there's going to be a new heaven. That heaven's going to pass away, and there's going to be a new heaven where we're here physically. We're here for real. It's not just a spiritual thing. The old heaven is right now in heaven with Jesus. Your spirit's there. But someday Jesus is back, and we'll be back, baby. Whoosh, out of the grave. Woo, physical. It's going to be awesome. So I told you I got excited about heaven. So that first heaven's going to pass away. There's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. Verse 2, I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully for her husband. I was at a wedding last weekend. You're perfect. In this case, it's a city, right? And I think it's a beautiful picture, right? Because you see a wedding, and it's about relationship, and it's about closeness, and it's perfect. It's a perfect city, and this is the exact opposite of Babel. Because Babel was built by humans, for the glorification of humans. Who built this city? Not us, Jesus. It's for Jesus, and it's to glorify Jesus. It's the opposite of Babel. He's perfecting what we've started by destroying it and rebuilding it in his own name. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that a beautiful beginning and end to this story? We're not there yet. He's working on it right now, and we're here as representatives working on it. But someday, this perfect city is going to come down. And then verse 2, New Jerusalem. I gave this talk to Lily last night, and she goes, why is it New Jerusalem? Why isn't it like, I don't know, New Grand Rapids or something? I like Grand Rapids, good food, good art, it's nice. It's not too big, but it's not too small. And I started thinking, why isn't it like New Grand Rapids? Or why is it New Jerusalem? And when you look at the whole Old Testament, there's a little city called Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, there's a temple. And in that temple, there's a holy place. And inside that holy place is the holiest of places. And inside that is God's throne. It's the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat of God. And so this is a representation of that. Back then, it was in one place. But now it's all over the earth. It's a perfect version of his throne. Are you guys seeing the connections here? I think, oh man, I'm like getting shivers just thinking about here, because it's not just going to be for one people. It's going to be for everybody. And he's coming back in a big city, and it's a perfect version of his throne. Verse 3, and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. It's personal. It's face to face. He's coming down here, which is also why there's an illustration of bride and groom. It's personal. It's a relationship. It's personal. Because the thing is, heaven is not just a place. If I asked you, think about heaven, how do you picture heaven? You might have a lot of answers. But the emphasis here isn't about the pearly gates or the streets of gold or the extremely nice, shiny buildings. It's not about the infrastructure. It's about God being with us. Heaven is primarily a relationship. It's a relationship with Jesus. And you kind of know that, because if you try imagining heaven without God, it doesn't really make sense. It's just a place. So the first thing that has to happen is that we are in a perfect relationship with God, and from that, the space is perfected. And there's actually examples in real life where you have experienced this. If you see someone across the hall an unexpected old friend, for example. Hey, and the space between you want to stay with that person. You want to go talk to them. You want to hang out in that space. If it's someone you don't like, don't worry, pretending I'm looking at this thing. I don't know that you're there, right? The space between you is weird. Yeah? Does that make sense? Are you guys following me? It's the same way with holidays. When you get over this idea that the holidays have to look a certain way, and you just start enjoying your loved ones, you get a tiny glimpse of what it's like to have a relationship in heaven. Because you're at the right place with the right people at the right time. And that's really all you need. That's really all you need. Revelation 21, 4-6. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. And he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. I'm going to do verse 4. It's interesting because it says there's no more bad stuff, right? There's no more bad stuff. No death, no mourning or crying or pain. But it says he's going to wipe away every tear from their eyes. But there was no crying. So why am I crying? And the way I envision it is that someday this is going to happen. We're going to see the perfect throne of God coming, and I'm going to be standing there, and I'm going to have this sudden realization that I'm not really supposed to be there. Everything I've done in my life, all the cool things, all the funny jokes I've told, none of it amounts to the perfection that is the glory of God. I'm going to feel like an outsider for a second. I'm going to start crying. And then probably through a crowd, because there's going to be a lot of people trying to talk to Jesus, he's going to see me. He's going to start walking towards me through the crowd. Oh my gosh, how's my makeup? How's my mustache? Jesus is coming my way. Nathaniel, dude, you're here. What? Oh, I'm so happy you're here. He's going to big hug. He's going to wipe away my tears because he knows my name. Jesus knows my name. Heaven is a relationship. I'm going to feel like an outsider for a second, but Jesus knows who I am. He knows who I am. And I think Satan wants you to believe that heaven is first and foremost a place. Right? I think it might be difficult for us to understand that heaven is actually primarily a relationship because Satan wants us to try earning our way there. He wants you so bad to think that you've done good enough in your life. He wants you so bad to start thinking in that way that it's like a karma thing or like I'm doing this so I should get this kind of thing. But what does Jesus say? Right? When he was here, he's talking to his disciples. What's he say to people? He says, one day, people are going to come to me and they're going to say, Lord, Lord, I did everything right. I cast out demons. I healed people. I preached real nice. I was real good on stage. I was generous. What's Jesus say to them? Depart from me, I never what? Knew you. It's not about what you do. It's not about what you think. It's about knowing Jesus. It's a relation. Heaven is a relationship. And from that relationship, we can then build a better world. But first, our relationship with Jesus is perfected. 5 and 6, he who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He's making everything new. Right? This idea of destructing something that we've built in order to build something that's perfect. And then he said, write this down, for these words are everything that God says is trustworthy and it's true. Amen? By the very nature of him even saying it, it means it's trustworthy and true. He said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. And this is a little bit reminiscent. This is a little reminiscent of the story of the woman at the well. Do you guys remember that story? Jesus knows that this woman goes to the well every day in secret because she's not living the best life. And so Jesus catches her one day, and they have a conversation. And she talks about water from the well, and he says something really special to her. He says, if you drink from the water I give you, you'll never be thirsty. She's like, where do I get this water? He's like, me. I am that water. And Jesus, that water he offers then to that woman, he's offering us today, and he's offering it then. Because a relationship with Jesus is fully satisfying. Heaven is full satisfaction. There's nothing more satisfying, like I said earlier, than being at the right place at the right time with the right person. And Jesus is always the right person. He's always the right person. And we're fully satisfied when we're in perfect relationship with him. I think about friendship with Jesus. Interesting because he calls us friends. And I've had friends for a little while, but I think of Moses and Abraham, and they've been friends with Jesus for thousands of years. And it doesn't get old. They've been friends with Jesus for forever. They died and they met Jesus face to face, and they've been friends face-to-face friends ever since. I sometimes think I've been friends for a long time with some of my buddies. I have 3 really close friends, and we've been friends for like 16 years. You know? It's a lot for me, but compared to 1,000 years, 2,000, 3, 4, 5, 6, eternity, I go deep with these guys. I mean, they know how I act. They expect jokes before I say them. I say a lot of jokes. They know me really well. And we haven't even really scratched the surface of what it means to be in deep relationship with someone. It's satisfying when I'm with them, but it's just a tiny drip of what it's going to be like in our relationship with Jesus. Just a tiny sliver. I mean, what's 15, 16 years compared to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 years of friendship? Heaven is satisfaction. Now we're going to flip to Revelation 7, 9 through 10. And this is another glimpse of heaven that John gets. He's looking into heaven. He says, after this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. And they cried out in a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude. There's a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people in heaven that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language. People from all over the world. And not just all over the world, but all throughout time as well. All throughout time. There's going to be people there that we never met, that were born 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, so on and so forth, all the way to the beginning of humanity. So not only is there going to be a difference in how we look, there's going to be a difference in how we even view the world at all. Right? Moses and Abraham did not have iPhones, and we don't know how to start a fire with our 2 hands. You know, so it's going to be a weird conversation, but it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. And you can tell actually that we actually stay unique and an individual because there are multiple languages. So John shows up, and he sees all these people dressed the same in white robes. Why white robes? I'll get to that in a second. But they're all speaking different languages. How can you know there's different languages if we're not all still speaking different languages? We're all still speaking different languages. We still have our unique flavor of whatever makes you up, because Jesus loves you like you. He doesn't want to make you into some gray blob of, nothing. He wants you to keep you, and he wants you to find the real you in him, because that's the only place we can truly be unique. That's the only place we can truly be ourselves, is in perfect relationship with Jesus. And so, tribe, tongue, throne before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes. White robes. Why white robes? This is pretty symbolic. I'm going to share another story because I love stories. I like to wear white t-shirts, but I never do. And the reason I never do, it's funny because my brother and my sister-in-law are wearing white today. I don't wear white, though. I try not to, because when I wear white, I get a hankering for spaghetti. I'm telling you. It is a 1-to-1 ratio. Every time I wear white, I think, give me some of that Olive Garden, because I'm really classy, so I'm like, give me some of that Olive Garden. Give me some of that Fazoli's. Oh, red sauce, meat. You slurp this noodle and the red stuff gets all over here. And if you're wearing a bib, it gets down here somehow. Yeah, and then, oh my goodness, okay, it's embarrassing. It's like little dots of red. I got to go home. I got to wash it. You wash it 42,000 times. And it fades, but it's still there. And somebody else might not see it, but it's like, I can't wear this shirt because it's got the little dot back here where nobody can see. I'm just going to wear it as an undershirt. I'm going to give it to Goodwill. Hopefully somebody doesn't care about spaghetti splatters. And it's weird because that's what sin does to us. When we sin, it's actually a part of our very nature to do whatever we want, to look out for ourselves, to look for our convenience and our own comfort, even if it's at the cost of someone else. And it's kind of, it's hard. It's unavoidable. No matter how hard you try, when you're in default mode, you're looking out for number one, right? I mean, it's true. When you're in default mode, when you're not thinking about it, you do things for yourself. You do things for yourself. And then God does something really special. God does something really special because he wants everyone to be in heaven. He wants heaven to be for everyone, right? Heaven is better than anything we can imagine. Heaven is relationship. Heaven is so satisfying. And heaven is also for everyone. And so what he does is that he sends his one and only son, Jesus Christ, to spill his blood. That way we may be covered in it. We're covered in his blood in red. Weird. And from that, all our sin is washed away. That shirt that had spaghetti stains on it, it's not part of the fabric of the shirt anymore. We're going to be wearing white, and we're going to be proud, not in ourselves, but in what Jesus has done on our behalf. They were wearing white robes holding palm branches. Palm branches are interesting because palm branches back then, it was a symbol of victory. It's a symbol of celebration. So really what we're witnessing here is actually a party. It's a kind of party, and it's about God. It's not about us. It's not about like, oh, can I talk to that cute girl over there? Sorry, that was my youth group talk. But it's not about us, right? So I'm a youth pastor. Sometimes I talk about single people. This is derailed. Palm branches, symbolic, victory. This is reminiscent of when Jesus comes into Jerusalem during Holy Week. You remember he comes in on a colt, and people are waving palm branches like, yeah, woo, Jesus. And they thought he was there to be the king of the world, but actually he was just beginning the process of bringing his kingdom here through his death and resurrection. And so this is symbolic of a party. Sometimes I hear people say that in heaven we're going to be perpetually worshiping through singing. And I don't think we're going to be worshiping through singing the whole time, but I think the first while is going to be that way. Because we're going to show up and this perfect place is going to come out of heaven, and there's going to be a band up there that's been practicing for 8,000 years because they died 8,000 years ago, but Jesus taught them all the new instruments. And it's going to be amazing, okay? It's going to be the craziest, most amazing concert you've ever... And so, let me... In youth group, sorry teenagers, I'm going to call you out for just a second, but in youth group, if you go to youth group and we watch teenagers worship, and I feel comfortable saying this because this was me until I was 26. They're uncomfortable, man. They're worshiping, and they're not thinking about worship. They're thinking about people looking at them worshiping. And so you're worshiping, and you're like, if I move wrong, that person will not think I'm cool anymore. And so it's kind of about ourselves, and I think sometimes we do that as adults. I still do that sometimes. Sometimes I have to stop thinking about myself and how I look and just worship God. And when we're there, we're not going to care what other people look like because the only person's gaze who matters is Jesus. And he has already forgiven us, and our relationship with him will be perfect. And so I just think this is going to be a crazy concert. Who knows how long it's going to go? Time is relative. It's going to be 1,000 years of worship and awesome and palm branches and somebody at the front with a water bottle going like this. You ever been to a concert? Stop spilling your drink water on me. I'm just in the mood right now. Heaven is for everyone. It's for everyone. Everyone's invited. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple. Because I think you and I both know people right now who don't have a relationship with Jesus. They don't have a relationship with Jesus. But I remember the story of the man on the cross next to Jesus the day Jesus was crucified. And that man had who knows how selfishly he lived. Who knows? But at the last minute, he realizes that he's not supposed to go to heaven. He sees this perfect person next to him. He's like, wow, tears, right? I'm not supposed to be here. Not with him anyways. And he's like, Jesus, if you remember me, maybe? What does Jesus say to him? Jesus says, tonight, I'll see you in paradise. All right? I'll see you there, today. Which maybe was alarming for that guy. I was like, okay, I'm going to die right now. But At the same time, it's this beautiful image of this person who just humbles themselves before the Lord after a life of selfishness. I think that person's family and their friends, if I had known him at the time, I would have been like, that's too bad. We're not going to see him in heaven. That really stinks. He made a lot of bad decisions and he never regretted them. Not knowing at all the conversation he had with Jesus. There are going to be people in heaven we don't expect. And there's going to be people in hell that we don't expect. But the thing is, we all start off on a level playing field, right? We look at that person on the cross. We look at our lives. We look at someone we look up to as a pillar of our faith. We all start on an even playing field of going to hell. That's where we're all going. But against all odds, right, against all likeliness, the least likely thing that could happen happens. God sends his only Son so that anyone who believes in him might not perish, but have eternal life. God so desperately wants us to have a relationship with him. He wants us so desperately to be satisfied in him, to be looking forward eagerly to his return. He wants us so badly to be excited about it. Because when you're excited about something, you can't shut up about it, can you? Right? When your team wins, you can't shut up about it, especially against your rivals. Isn't that interesting? Notre Dame wins, and I can't shut up about it to my Michigan and Ohio State friends. Jesus wins, and we shouldn't be able to shut up about it to the people we like the least. And here's the thing. There's a gift there, right? But that gift didn't just get there. There's a third illustration that I talked about earlier. Third illustration Jesus gives about the kingdom of heaven. And this one's a little heavy. It's a little heavier. There's a guy who owes a king just an unfathomable amount of money. You're just never going to pay it off, ever. Doesn't matter what you do. You're never going to pay it off. And he's gonna face the consequences. And he starts begging the king, please, 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 please forgive me, please forgive me. And the king's like, okay, has pity in his heart. I forgive you. Like, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay back a cent. Go live your life. This guy goes home, okay? He finds someone who owes him a lot less, okay? A lot less. But it's not nothing. It's not nothing. 100 denarii he owes him. That's 100 days worth of work. And he sends him to prison because the guy can't pay him. He's like, please forgive me. I'll pay you back this 100 denarii, right? 100 days worth of work. I'll pay you back, I promise. And the guy says, no, you got to go to jail, man, until you can pay me back. And the thing is 3.5 months worth of work, if I didn't get paid that wherever I was working, I would have the legal right to action, I would think, right? I mean, somebody's got to stand up I got to do something about this. We're going to go hungry if I don't get this paycheck for 3.5 months, 4 months almost. That guy was right. He was right to do that. He had every legal jurisdiction to send this other person to jail for owing them 3 months worth of work. So I'm not a slave to you. But that's not what the kingdom of heaven is like, is it? It's not about being right. Because then the king hears about this, brings him back, and he says, you wicked servant. It's interesting because it's a servant of the king. This person accepted the king's forgiveness and then didn't give it to someone else. And he says, you wicked servant, you wicked Christian, how dare you accept my forgiveness and not give it to someone else? And then he was sent to the chambers, right, to the dungeon, to be tortured for the rest of his life until he could pay off his debt with his life. And then Jesus says, that's what the kingdom of heaven is like. Right before that, the reason he prompts the story is because right before that, Peter says, Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive someone? 7 times? That's a lot. Whew, 7 times is a lot. It's once a week, once a day for a whole week. Jesus says, no, 70 times 7. You have to forgive them forever. Because the amount I'm paying for you, it doesn't matter how much people do wrong against you compared to what I've done for you. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're right. I don't care if you're wrong. I don't care if you have all the facts. I don't care if you have a beautiful argument. It doesn't matter. You have to forgive. And there's a quote by C.S. Lewis that I'm a C.S. Lewis. I don't want to say nerd because then someone's going to be like, I know everything about C.S. Lewis, and they're going to outshine me. But I love C.S. Lewis. He's got a beautiful quote about forgiveness. He says that sometimes we forgive someone for something they've done for us, to us, right? We forgive them, and then time passes. We don't see them for a while. But then something triggers a memory of that time that they did this one thing to us. And we realize that fire is still burning. It's almost like we never forgave them in the first place. And then we have to forgive them again. And so sometimes we don't have to forgive someone for 77 different things, but sometimes we have to forgive someone 77 times for just one thing. But we have to continuously forgive these people because Jesus himself says that the kingdom of heaven begins with forgiveness. We wouldn't even be talking about this today if he hadn't first come down, forgiven our sins through his death, and come back to life. We wouldn't be here today. This would look different. Heaven would not be exciting if we hadn't been forgiven because we have too much to forgive. I just think River Oaks needs a heart of forgiveness. I think I need a heart of forgiveness every day. It doesn't matter what's been done, what hasn't been done, who's wrong, who's right. Who cares? Who cares? God calls us to forgive. We're his representatives, and the first thing he does for us is forgive. His Holy Spirit's living in us. How can we not forgive? How can we not? And he offers this gift to everyone. Not all of us might be Christians this morning, but he offers you this gift of forgiveness, and it's already been given to you. That's the crazy thing. Sometimes we think we're like, we got to ask for it. No. Jesus already gave you that gift. He already came and died and was a sacrifice and went back to heaven. He already is given. That Amazon package is outside your door. You just got to open the door, you got to grab the package, and you got to open it. You got to trust in Jesus. And so my question for you is, am I going to see you in heaven? Are we going to be at that concert together? I hope we are. I hope more than anything that we are. I'm going to be there. But that's a question for you. And so in just a minute, I'm going to close this in prayer. But before I start praying, we're going to have about 30 seconds of just silence. And I want you to talk to God yourself. I want you to ask him about heaven. And I want you, if you're not excited about heaven, why? I mean, that's a question you can ask. God knows everything. Do you ever ask him questions? Have you ever thought about the fact that he's omniscient? He literally knows everything. Have you ever asked him a question and waited for the response? Maybe that starts today. Are you excited about it? Are you not? Why aren't you? How can you be? Have you accepted this gift of forgiveness? How does that process start? How do you trust in you? Lord Jesus, how do I trust in you? We're just going to take 30 seconds for you guys to pray to yourselves, just talk to God, and then I'm going to close us in prayer. Let's close our eyes and bow our heads. Lord, we just come before you today, first and foremost, with thankful hearts. Lord, help us to have thankful hearts. Help us to be thankful for everything that you've given us. All good things come from you, and they're not going to stop coming from you. So God, thank you. And Lord, in that thankfulness, help us to have a heart of forgiveness for our brother and our sister. Help us to have a heart of forgiveness for even our enemies. Lord, I pray that you guide us today, guide us this week. Help us to be your true representatives, starting with forgiveness. Help us to represent you to our neighborhood, to our family, to our friends. Change our hearts, Lord. Make our hearts soft again. May our hearts look like yours. Put these things all in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.